The Sony A9 III is being announced tomorrow. We finally have confirmation, we have validation, and we finally know what's supposed to make the Sony A9 III the fastest mirrorless camera ever. And it's going to have a big new feature. A big new feature that's rumored to be on the Canon EOS R1 and a first for sports shooters. So stick around after this short break for everything we know. But first, subscribe to this channel for a chance to win a Canon EOS R5. I'll be giving one away to one lucky subscriber once this channel reaches 100,000 subscribers. Anyone above the age of 18 with a valid mailing address is eligible. Additional terms and conditions are linked in the description down below. Sony Alpha Rumors has just confirmed that the Sony A9 III will be announced tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. along with a 300mm GM. Sony has already scheduled an event. And when I say this is a big new feature, this really is a big deal. If the Sony A9 III does have this, and Sony Alpha Rumors has been very good at talking about what's going to be up and coming in their latest cameras, from the A7R5 to the A6700, the A7CR, the A7C2, and the list goes on. What they're saying, what Sony Alpha Rumors is saying, Andrea is telling us this morning, is that the Sony A9 III, and this feature, by the way, is rumored to be in the Canon EOS R1. More on that later. But the Sony A9 III is supposed to have a global shutter. That's right, a 24 megapixel full frame sensor with a global shutter, not rolling shutter. And that means that when you take a shot, the entire sensor is read out at the same time. But before I go any further, please subscribe to Andrea's channel because he's the reason we have this information. He broke the story and he deserves the credit. And here, listen to it in his own words.
It's kind of sensor the Sony A9 III would use. And usually, like on this A7C2, A7CR, a couple of weeks or even 1 month before the announcement, I get some specs. But on the A9 III, I didn't get anything. And there is a very good reason for that, because only very few people in this case had the chance to see the A9 III. And sources didn't want to get spoiled, and I don't want them to get in any trouble, so I had to wait out until the very right moment, and it's today. And the very good news is that the Sony A9 III will be the world's first sports and wildlife photographer using a brand new Sony global shutter.
So there you go, the first Sony Alpha camera. In fact, the first stills hybrid camera for sports fast action shooters has a global shutter. Now it is 24 megapixels, and I remember everybody talking about how the 1DX Mark III, the Canon EOS R6, the R6 Mark II with a 20 and 24 megapixel sensor, just, well, it's so yesteryear. That isn't enough resolution today, but keep in mind we're talking about sports fast action shooters. 24 megapixels, if you know how to frame your shot, is, I still argue today, more than plenty. 24 megapixels global shutter, that's a big deal. Think about it. You're shooting the Olympics, you're shooting anything where you got a lot of fast moving objects, no more rolling shutter. And that's a big deal to a lot of people. Now to me, not such a big deal, and maybe to you not such a big deal. But if you cover sports, fast action, motorsports, or anything like that, having a global shutter is a really big deal. And it also works in video too, not just stills. Look at Red and what they put in their cameras, and it does make an aesthetic difference. 24 megapixel full frame global shutter sensor. That really is a big deal. But now I want to talk a little bit about the Canon EOS R1, because if you'll recall back a couple of years ago when we started getting our first rumored specs of the Canon EOS R1, we were told that it would have up to 85 megapixels, a global shutter, and quad pixel autofocus. Well, since then, those rumors have been largely panned as being, well, somebody's forecast or a rumor, but not based in fact in any way whatsoever. Now, it is possible that Canon was working on a global shutter for the Canon EOS R1, but the latest rumors indicate that the camera is going to have somewhere around a 45 megapixel sensor. And that's a big deal, because to be able to do something like 45 megapixels with a global shutter, that's a really tough feat to do. It is possible that Canon might have figured this out, but we don't have anything credible. We don't have anything validated. We don't have anything that Sony Alpha Rumors was able to come up with the A9 III having a global shutter. And one thing I do want to address here, I've been covering camera rumors for a good 4 or 5 years, and I've heard from time to time people pick you on various sites, such as Canon Rumors or Sony Alpha Rumors. And Sony Alpha Rumors has been, well, taking it on the chin quite a bit as being an unreliable source, that they never get it right. Well, I can clearly tell you that when you're looking at Sony Alpha rumors, if you see anything that says it comes from a validated source, Andrea has been, well, very accurate. I'd say 99% accurate 95% of the time. The A7R5, well, he was bang on there. The A7C Mark II, the A7CR, the A6700, the Nikon ZF, and recently the Canon 200 to 800mm long before anybody else. He's a first, and he does deserve you subscribing to his channel. I like Andre. He's been on this channel before, and he's also a friend of this channel. And I'm really happy by this news because it really kind of moves this industry along further. And if we do get this in the Canon EOS R1 as well, well, that indicates that we're seeing a turning point, at least for sports and fast action shooters, that no longer is a rolling shutter the way to go. You actually have a choice between a rolling shutter and a global shutter. And tomorrow morning, if all goes well, you'll be able to pre-order the Sony A9 III and the 300mm GM. But this is Sony after all, so what Sony quite often likes to do is delay things for 24 hours. But nevertheless, tomorrow morning at around 7:30 Eastern Standard Time, I'm going to be holding a live stream with some Sony panel guests, and we're going to be talking about the latest leaked specs leading up to that point, who the A9 III is for, and some of my guests are going to be really excited and ready to pre-order this camera. So I'll be covering that live tomorrow morning. I will have my scheduled event up very shortly. Whew. I told you it was going to be an exciting second half. We've already had some really amazing announcements. Last week we had some announcements by Canon in terms of lenses. We had the Nikon ZF, and now it's Sony's time to shine. And of course, the Canon EOS R1 is supposed to be coming out next year. We'll just have to wait and see. Maybe Canon rumors, maybe this will help shake the rumor tree a little bit, and maybe Canon rumors will come out and say, hey, we know more information about the Canon EOS R1, because I can tell you that rumor machine is going to start waking up as the Canon EOS R5 Mark II. We're supposed to get that camera announced sometime before CP+. And the Canon EOS R1, well, according to Canon rumors, we're supposed to start getting a slow leak campaign starting in the first quarter. And yeah, so a lot going on. And thank you, everybody. These smart pre-order links, by the way, that I've had down for the better part of this video, they're only going to work once the embargo's lifted. So tomorrow or 24 hours after tomorrow, whenever Sony's available, whenever Sony has announced the pre-order will start, that's when these links will work. So go ahead and copy these down, put them in your browser, because these will help you get into the queue a little bit quicker than anybody else. Because I get a sense that if this does have a global shutter, it's going to sell out well. And if you don't get it in the first few batches, you might be waiting weeks or even months. So thank you so much for watching. Have yourself a great day, and we'll see you again soon.